Alright, let's go over the bounce patch changes for Team Sacred Treasure, starting with Kyo. So his is going to be short, not much going on with him. First off, we got something useless where supers couldn't come out during the rush. I didn't realize that was an issue, but nobody really cares because nobody uses rush combos. Just get rid of auto combos. Close D comes out in 6 frames instead of 9. This is a really good buff because close D, as you know, deals more damage than close C for most characters, but it comes out slower, so it's not very practical to use as a confirm unless you are punishing a DP. But now you can get it more consistently now that it comes out a lot faster. So for example, off of a jumping normal, off of a quick max confirm, and so on. So definitely use this button more often. And then finally, the last hit of a C Rekka has an expanded hitbox upward so that it lands more consistently. So if you don't know, some of Kyo's more optimal combos involves using the C Rekka, and there were issues where the last hit of the C Rekka just doesn't hit because of the final 2 hits just has different kind of, juggle heights. But now they've kind of fixed it or buffed it, whatever you want to call it, so that it lands more consistently. But yeah, that's really it for Kyo. I don't think he really needs a lot of changes. He's really good as it is, and right now they're just giving him a little bit of quality of life buffs. Okay, next up we have Iori, who has a lot of good changes. So starting with a faster dash speed, that's always good. Could probably sneak up and do a low or maybe run up command grab a lot easier. Blowback is faster, which is always good. Close A goes into reduce cancel when going to rush combo. Nobody cares, it's just an auto combo. Far A is now special cancelable and has farther reach, so that's going to be really good. More for consistency. I don't think it really opens any combo opportunities for Iori. So for example, if you do a jump in, sometimes your crouching A will whiff. But Far A has more reach, so if you use that instead to go into your BNB or combos, it's going to land more consistently, and that's just a little bit of a nice buff for Iori. Alright, Far C is now faster, can now be whiff cancelled, and has an increased cancel window by 2 frames. So this is pretty dang good. So if you do some sort of frame trap like this, now you're going to have a good amount of time to hit confirm, and it's faster, and in case you miss, you can at least whiff cancel it. Okay, crouching B, reduce upper hurt box, not a big deal. Crouching C, increase cancel window by 4, so you have more time to go into your cancels, like this. Crouching D, reduce overall frames by 6. Does it mean recover faster by 6 or faster? No, it can't be faster by 6. It's got to recover a little bit faster. But I'm pretty sure this is still punishable. Jumping light kick is more active, whiffs on crouching characters, so they just make this person standing. So if you stick this out earlier, it's not going to whiff anymore because they increase the active frames. But, still can whiff if you do it too soon. Next up, forward B, reduce knockback distance on hit. So before, this puts them really far, right? So now that they're closer, your fireball will land more consistently, or any other combos. It's just going to be easier to combo. Another good example is the quick max. So they used to be like super far after this quick max confirm. So when you go into this, you have to wait for Iori to kind of run up, and that could lead to you dropping the combo. Now they're going to make it so that, hey, this opponent is not going to be as far, so you don't have to worry about that, and you can just combo normally as you would with any other character. So that's a good little bit of a quality of life change to make his combos land more consistently. Next up, we got his DP. Reduce startup time from 6 frames to 4, so this is going to be a really fast reversal. Expanded hitbox upwards on the beginning of the attack, so this is going to anti-air better. And startup attack damage carries over for an additional 2 frames. Okay, so what this means is that even though this is 1 hit, this attack has 2 hitboxes. The first one is if you hit it at the beginning of the move, you'll get 70 damage. However, if you hit it a little bit later, let me just set the dummy to kind of jump at me. If you hit it a little bit later, notice how it does only 35 damage. So what they're saying that one of the buffs to this move is that the initial 70 full damage is gonna last longer than the attack. So you can anti-air a little bit later and you still get the 70 damage. So that's a good buff. It's a small buff, but it's good. It makes this a really good anti-air. It's faster, has a better upward hitbox, and you still get your full 70 damage. Okay, next up, his A projectile now has a reduced projectile speed, and is probably the slowest I've ever seen his projectiles go outside of supers and EXs. So I'm not sure what this change is for. Maybe in the corner you have better plus frame advantage, or maybe this combo works. Yeah, it does. So let's see here. So yeah, I don't think this was possible before, but correct me if I'm wrong. But maybe there's new combo opportunities coming out of this. And even outside of combo opportunities, the fact that his fireballs come out at completely two different speeds is a really good way to kind of mix up the opponent. Because the A fireball is really kind of fast, right? A little bit slower than the C version. So maybe this is just another way for them to kind of, you know, throw him a slow ball. Okay, next up, his Rekkas increase buffer input window, so you have more time to input your Rekkas, easier to confirm, expanded hitbox forward, and this is only while the opponent is in a hit state, so in other words, only during combos. So okay, this basically means gonna land more consistently. There were issues where I was trying to combo this, and sometimes it would drop, and now they're gonna fix it so that it lands more consistently. The other change is to his EX, expanded hitbox upwards. So same issue. Sometimes when I'm doing combos and I'm trying to do the EX Rekkas, the third hit will not connect. So they're going to make it so that it lands more consistently. So that's good. Next up, his command grab, or rather his command dash grab. It's not a grab, it's just a hit, but the animation looks like a grab. So the B version is only a command dash, doesn't build any bar, doesn't, hit the opponent obviously, so it's purely used to mix up the opponent. So a lot of crazy opportunities coming out of this change here. I really like it a lot. So previously the B version and D version didn't have any differences. Maybe the only difference is that the B version travels a little bit shorter and the D version travels farther, but not really a important difference in the grand scheme of things. It's better if the move has a completely different function like this. And I kind of hope they do that for all moves in this game where both versions have no differences. I would like to see more variations between, you know, different versions that, kind of like this basically. Okay, next up, the D version of this move. I don't know how to interpret this patch note, so if anyone understands this, please let me know. But it says decrease 5 frames for OTG startup. First of all, this move doesn't OTG. That's only the EX version. So I don't know what that means. Does it mean this starts up faster? Or the wake up opportunity is decrease? I don't know. I feel like in terms of wake up, it's the same thing. And in terms of startup, it still combos into what it should. Let's see here. Well, actually, no, there is a difference here. So before, you couldn't combo this string into half circle back D. You had to do it from his forward B commando, which has more hit stun. So I think what they're trying to say is that this move comes out faster, which they should have just said it starts up faster. Okay, so that's a kind of a good change, I guess. I don't think it really matters which command normal you use anymore because they're pretty much the same now, in terms of combo ability and in terms of damage. Up to you. Okay, next up, let's see. His DPD can now be cancelled into EX moves, which is good because you used to only cancel it into regular specials. So this is going to increase his damage output by a lot. So for example, you can now do this combo. Oops. Messing up here. There we go. Kind of dropped the combo there, so let me just do it in the corner. Alright, so 400 damage for 2 EX moves. That's pretty standard. Well, I would say standard across the board, but pretty high considering the bar usage. And that's something that Iori has suffered with, is damage output compared to the rest of the cast. So now that they made this change, he's going to have a lot more damage now. Other changes to this move is that this move is no longer an overhead. The patch note says high, which implies overhead, but really it's just you could block it crouching. So let me just demonstrate that. You don't have to block it high anymore. Next up, they also removed the invulnerability on startup, so this move, yes, actually used to be invincible on wake up. Now I forgot if it was lower body invincibility or full body, but it doesn't really matter because most people use the DP when you're trying to wake up. So it sounds like a nerf, but it's like not really an important nerf because nobody really used it that way. And then lastly, one of the more important changes is they increase the damage from 50 to 80. So now that their intent is like, hey, use this more in combos, and you know the incentive is not only can you EX out of this, but we're also going to increase the damage. So really good change for Iori. And then the last change we have here is, let's see, the EX version of this starts up in 28 frames instead of 31. So this move is a little bit faster, which is good. I think one of the issues, if I remember right, was that sometimes this wouldn't combo on from EX projectile, or I think you had to do it right away. Either way, pretty good change when moves are a little bit faster. I don't know if this adds any combo potential, but if it does, that's even better. Overall, I think these changes to Iori are really good, especially the DPD and all the other changes that just make his gameplay a little bit more nuanced. So really good stuff from SNK on buffing Iori in this patch. Okay, and lastly we have Chizuru, who also has a lot of good changes. First up, she has a faster dash speed, and close A is now faster, which I think means that this link is possible. Let me just do this, there we go. I don't think this was possible before, I'm pretty sure it wasn't. So it's always good that, you know, characters have this kind of link. And then far C now, they expanded the hitbox downward, so it's more likely to hit crouching opponents, which was kind of a problem before. And then far B is now cancelable into command normals. It won't give her any new combos, but one of Chizuru's strengths is that she could kind of frame trap opponents into something like this, and then land into her OTG. And you know, far B is a very common ending string for Chizuru, so it's a really good change that they made it cancelable into command normals, even if there's no new combos coming out of it. Actually, let me try a command slide. Yeah, no new combos, but still good to have it. Closely, they expanded the hitbox forward, so it has more range, which I don't know if it plays a part into this link being possible, but always good that it is. And then blowback is a lot faster, 18 to 12 frames. So this is a lot faster than what it used to be, which is really good. Next up, we got crouching C. Now moves forward on startup and reduce hurtbox facing forward facing hurtbox. So in other words, less likely to trade or get beaten out, and it has more range. So one of the problems I've had with Chizuru in the past was I would try to kind of convert into a full combo, and crouching C was kind of like one of the good ways to do that because you can go into command normal. And the problem is that the range sometimes should be too far for this to connect, and so I wouldn't even get a full combo out of it. So really good, to me, really good buff. Crouching D reduced downward facing hurtbox on motion, that's whatever's. Jumping A, expand the hitbox forward. I really think this is not important because there are so much better jumping normals out there, like jumping C and jumping B. So you're never going to see Chizuru players using this. I mean, even with the range buff, I'm barely hitting this character here. Really sucks. Alright, jumping B, this is a really big one. Expanded hitbox backwards. So when I first saw the Chizuru trailer, I thought this was going to cross up. And it didn't, right? Maybe if you're both moving and they move into you, they'll accidentally cross themselves up. But this was not an intentional cross up in the original version. And now that it is, it's a really good buff. And man, the cross up hitbox for this is really good, even though I whiffed it there. Really, really good buff. Alright, jumping C, reduce hurtbox size. So again, less likely to be beaten out or trade with this because she has a smaller hurtbox out of it. Same thing with jumping D. The other change to jumping D is that it's more active by 2 frames, so you could stick this out a little earlier and still will connect. Now it's still possible for you to hit it too early and it's gonna whiff, but you know, as you can see, way more active than what it, a little bit more active than what it used to be. Just keep in mind, it still whiffs on crouching characters, so don't use it as a jump in. Jumping blowback comes out a lot faster, just like her standing blowback, so that's really good because blowbacks are some of the better normals in this game, even better if they're faster. And then let's see here, her forward B command normal, when you cancel it, has increased distance traveled. So kind of what I was alluding to earlier is when you do the string and they block, now you want to end it in a command normal. And one of the issues with that, this command normal didn't have any reach when you cancel it. And this was a huge problem because you would get whiff punished. Now they increased the range so that it actually connects when you cancel it from a block string. So that's really good. And next up, forward A also has increased range. So sort of what I was saying earlier was that I had a lot of problems consistently comboing crouching C into a full combo because the opponent would be out of reach or too far. Now that they buffed the range of crouching C and forward A when you cancel it, you're not going to have the issue anymore, which is really good. Okay, next up, we got, let's see, what is this move? 2-1-2. So this move right here now does a hard knockdown on it, and they reduce the overall recovery frames for the kick versions. So the versions that has her travel forward, travel with the clone instead of staying in place, is now a little bit faster, or recovers faster, it seems like. Anyways, I kind of wish they just put like what the behavior was, because it says change behavior. Just say hard knockdown now, you know. Anyways, this is really good because now you're gonna get a hard knockdown setup and possibly get your new cross-up setup out of this, even though I whiffed it there, but you get the idea. Okay, next up, reduce leftover player hurt box frames by 5 frames. So if you don't know, Chizuru can throw out these clones, and these clones can actually be hit, as I just demonstrated. Now, they've made it so that she's less likely to get hit because there's less leftover frames to hit her out of it. I'm doing it now because I'm hitting her because, you know, I played Chizuru, so I kind of know when to hit her. But if you're facing Chizuru and you're trying to hit her clones, now you're going to have a harder time doing that. So really good buff for Chizuru, because sometimes it's silly to kind of throw this out as a poke and then you actually get punished from full screen. Alright, next up, the follow-ups for this move increase knockback distance on block for the C and D versions. So for her clones, the traveling clones here, if you do the heavy versions, Chizuru travels with, she travels forward instead of staying in place. And as you can see, the knockback is a lot farther than what it used to be, so it's going to be a lot safer. And they also reduce the overall frames by 1, so I don't know if that means this recovers faster, because I see it as neutral now. Either way, really good, as there wasn't a lot of incentive to use the heavy versions. Now there is, because now you can be closer and kind of apply pressure going forward there. So good buff. Next up, expanded hitbox forward. Let me just make sure I got the right move here. So this is the follow-ups here. Okay, so these follow-ups are now going to have more range moving forward. So there was an issue for some of these combos, depending on the range, where I would do this, do the follow-up, and then the follow would whiff because it just doesn't reach. Now they've expanded the hitbox so that these moves will land more consistently. Next up, we have ATP. Used to do 80 damage, now it does 100 damage, and they reduced the startup from 9 to 7 frames. So it's faster and does more damage. A 20-point damage buff, that's good. And then CDP also has a buff, in fact 4 changes to it, and this is probably one of the more important changes. First of all, it's now super cancelable on the first hit, and I kind of messed up there. There we go. So this is going to increase her damage output by a lot, because she used to be able to super cancel off of just this, and this does 65 and this does 90 damage on the first hit. They also changed the blowback on the first hit, so what that means is that typically when you DP somebody, it launches them in the air, so even if you super cancel them, the super is not going to connect. Well, they changed the blowback so that the opponent doesn't fly way too far, so your super is going to land. So really good, smart change there. They increased the hit stop on the first hit. So if you don't know what hit stop is, try getting hit by Maxima's Vapor Cannon. The game will kind of do a mini freeze, right? And that mini freeze allows you more time to kind of do a super cancel off of that. They've added more hit stop to the first hit of her DP so that you can super cancel. or sorry, have more time to super cancel, because going from a DP to a Kurosoko back, Kurosoko forward motion is kind of difficult, right? You kind of need more time to do it. So I really like that change from SNK. They're like, hey, we're gonna buff this move, you can super cancel it. We know it's difficult to do it, so we're gonna give you more time to super cancel out of it. Smart stuff. And then lastly, they changed the damage from 120 to 150. So really good change, because and not only that, but the damage buff is to the first hit of CDP. So it's 90 instead of 60, which means when you super cancel it, you're gonna get that damage buff front loaded to the DP rather than them adding it to the second hit, which you won't be able to super cancel off of. So huge change for Chizuru. Alright, next up, what is this? The EXDP now hard knocks down on hit. So this is what I was saying earlier, where if you're gonna say that changes the behavior, just tell us what the behavior is, because in the same patch notes, you literally just said hard knockdown on hit. Anyways, it's kind of weird that this does a hard knockdown, but we'll take that, and you can get a setup off of this. So if you do her B and B, you can just end it with EXDP, and you're gonna get your hard knockdown setup and a jumping B cross up. So really good stuff for Chizuru. Next up, reduce recovery duration by 8 frames when reflecting a projectile. So if you reflect a projectile using her Kurosoko forward A, you're now going to recover faster out of it, which is good, because sometimes when you reflect and they've already sent it out, they already can act first. In some cases, they might have the advantage over you in terms of frames, so it's good that she recovers faster. Next up, the C version of this is also a little bit faster by 4 frames. So this move here, the purpose of this move, right, is to it does a combo from anything. You're supposed to kind of do it in a block string, and once it connects, you get your plus frames. It used to be an overhead, it's not an overhead anymore, so now what you're gonna do is you're gonna kind of set them up as a block string, get your plus frames, hopefully they press a button, and then you're gonna connect it. The issue is that before, the opponent can hit you in between because it was so slow. Now they're gonna make it a little bit faster, so it's less likely to beat you out of this. So that's a good change. Alright, the next change is the EX version of this move. There's quite a lot of changes to this actually. So before, this move here used to ground bounce and do an overhead, and then they changed it so that it wasn't an overhead in the first version of the game that was released. Now they're changing it back to an overhead. They're gonna make it a little bit faster. They're gonna change the blowback on hit so that it doesn't ground bounce anymore. And on top of that, they're gonna nerf the damage from 120 to 80. And also on top of that, they're gonna reduce the distance that it travels, so it doesn't move forward as much, and they decrease the range as well. So basically, this is just your close out the round overhead move right here. So it's exactly the same kind of changes they made to Terry's overhead and B Janet's EX overhead, where both of them now do 80 damage. They don't travel as far, right? So I think that's an alright change. I know some people won't be pleased with that, but it's a quick, hard to see overhead. It does almost 100 damage, and so it only costs half a bar to also do it. So it's a round, and it's supposed to close out the round. So pretty good change here. I know it's somewhat of a nerf, but I think it's a lot better than what it used to be, which wasn't an overhead. So now it has more of a purpose, even if the damage is nerfed. Okay, next up, her stealing super, the punch super, now locks the opponent for 50 more frames. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, this move here, when she lands it, see how they're glowing blue? During that duration, they can't use any supers, specials, or any bar. I forgot if they can use command homos. Let me test that. Yeah, they could still use command homos, but they can't use any bar. And now they're gonna increase the duration in which they can't use that meter or specials. So that's good. That's good. And then lastly, the kick super, the clones, they're gonna expand the hitbox backwards. So I really don't think that's a really big deal, because backwards means behind the opponent. Like, you're never gonna use this, as a, you're never gonna cross up opponents with this. Let me test this out. So let me have the opponent use this, and let me try to roll past it and see if I get hit by it. I didn't get hit by it. Still not getting hit by it. I rode right on top of it. Okay, I actually really tried to get hit by it. Okay, so that buff is now really important. pretty insignificant. But everything else on this patch note list for Chizuru is super good. A cancelable DP, even I fucked up there. Cross up B, more consistent landing combos because of the increased range, faster blowbacks, hard knockdown setups. Just really everything is just so good with Chizuru. I still don't think a lot of people are going to use her because she is more of a difficult character to use because her normal is a little bit kind of on the weirder side, right? But still, if you're a Chizuru player, you're really going to love these changes for her. So I'm really happy about that.